What's up, WWE Champions Universe? I'm assuming I got the timing right on this.
6 seconds next time.
Welcome to Champions Chat, the fastest growing podcast dedicated to the WWE Champions mobile game. I'm Rusty Graves, Isla Dawn, and with me as always is Alba Fire, Lee Brown. What's up, Lee? We're the women's tag team champions.
Well, that if we're the women's tag team champions, that means WWE's going back to booking Santina Marella to win and James Ellsworth to be the first women's Money in the Bank carrier. That's some messed up stuff right there. Let the women win their awards. They're better than we are anyway.
Did you watch any of the Great American Bash? You know, NXT is going back and reusing old show titles like Havoc and Great American Bash. So this week,
Bunkhouse Stampede.
Yeah. They did the Great American Bash, and they had the women's tag champs defend the titles on their show, and it really confused my son because he's like, "Wait a second, they're on SmackDown. Why are they on NXT?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, the women's tag titles can be defended anywhere. They have to be." So it's just really, really confusing, I think, for my 7-year-old. And I started thinking that's probably really confusing for a lot more people than just him. Like, I'm not sure I understand why they do that either. Any thoughts on that? Should each show have their own women's tag?
Well, this could be the last segment we do on the show for a while. But the whole thing with straps, championships, prizes, belts, whatever you want to call them. Like during the Attitude Era, they had 57 of them, and the other company has like 734. So every single person on the show is a champion of something, and that's just way too much. But at the same time, I think it makes sense. Like for me, okay, sorry, I'm going to go off on a side tangent here, but like when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, he drew on the board the words professional and home, and then laptop, desktop. And he said, this is what we make right here, period. We make one, but at the time they were making like 17 pro computers and 47 home compute, blah, blah, blah. And he just simplified it down. To me, it makes the most sense to have a women's world and a women's intercontinental, a women's, WWE and a women's United States. The tag ones are kind of funny, though, because if you have a tag champion set on every show when they barely dig into tag team wrestling at all anyway, so that could take us a while to talk about. I have thoughts.
I agree. And it shows, once again, we're in a strange reality where tag team wrestling just isn't what it was when we were growing up. And they put individual stars together and create tag teams. Hey, Lee, let me just start today's show by saying, telling a story, but also issuing an apology. Earlier this week, someone wrote on the Champions Forum that there was a content creator that was actually had been bashing factions in the global chat. And I was like, whoa. That's not good, right? And then I go on it and look at it, and they're actually talking about me. And I was surprised, to say the least, because I'm always pro-faction. We start all of our streams with faction roll call. We always help by spotlighting community, community spotlights on different faction leaders, faction strategy. And I'm all for every player and every faction on every level of the community. So I was taken aback when I was like, well, why would they think I'm now? Lo and behold, they had screenshotted the evidence that a content creator was bashing the factions. And so here's the story behind that. I am a very superstitious person. And I got a couple of megas. I was doing the SummerSlam of Darkness loot, and I was chasing the Aussie gear this week. And I set up Streamlabs, and I record the first set of pulls. The first set of pulls, I got nothing, not even a fuse, not even a star fill, nothing. And so during the video, and I posted the video last night, you can watch it to see, during the video, I talk about tagging the server, right? Quote, tagging the server, which means I'm going to put in global chat something that is a note to myself that I've been here and that the loot didn't go well in my favor, and to move on and hit refresh and find a new server. So I wrote the phrase bad, bad
Yep.
in the global server, not thinking, not realizing that the global chat is where people do a lot of faction recruiting, right? So they can auto share from their factions portal, like join Battletoads, join Toxic Mafia, join Woken. Like they can just post it right there. And so the last post in the chat was a faction recruiting post. And so with no context, when I just wrote bad, bad under it, they assumed I was I was talking about their faction and telling people to avoid it, which
Wow.
is not the case at all. But I can totally see how they would think that's what had happened. And so I wrote an apology on the forum. We posted the loot video so everyone can see why, and even see what I wrote in real time as I posted it. And here's where it gets a little hairy, is I did it not only once, but I refreshed, did a second set of pulls, got nothing, not even a fuse, not even a star fill. And so I wrote on a second server, bad, bad. So there were not only one faction, but two factions that thought I was discouraging people from joining their faction. So I want to issue a huge apology to those factions, just to say, man, lesson learned. I'm going to use a different phrase in the future. Total misunderstanding, but still, I don't want anyone to. Lee always shares about there's the intention of our words and there's the impact of our words. My intention was never to throw water on someone's fire, right? And yet the impact I had was like, 200 people scratching their head going, what the heck? Why does Rusty hate us now?
Wow.
So,
all you threw water on their Alba fire.
Yeah. All that to say, guys, I'm sorry. I'm gonna find just a fun phrase to write in the chat, like, something that can never be misconstrued.
Use our safe word. Use our safe word. Tickle Baker.
Tickle
Baker.
Let me just say this. Marking a server is in no way a strategy. It is my superstition alone. So don't think I'm giving you some, behind the curtain inside look. No, because I struck out 2 for 2 megas, not a fuse, not a star fill, no Aussie gear, whiff, swing and a miss. And we posted those videos so you could see exactly why I did it.
Well, Rusty, I I had kind of a similar, but I didn't get pulled out on global chat and everybody like made a forum post about me and all that. But actually had something where it was a misunderstanding within our own faction, because me, I don't play the tag server game. I don't watch forum. I don't, every once in a while somebody will be like, oh, this is a hot server, and so I'll do a $5 pull just to see. But there was that. Well, let's just kindly call them a troll for the sake of me not going off in a more explosive manner. But that person who for a while was posting like, boys and girls, text me for, all that kind of stuff. And it was on screen during one of the videos I was recording. So I just typed the word bump just to get it off the screen, get it away from there. And somebody messaged me and said, hey, I was on the server that you tagged as a hot server and I got garbage. And I went, I'm not tagging the server for like, hey guys, check this out. This is a hot server. I literally was just bumping the words up the screen so that they weren't on my screen during the video recording. So.
Well, okay, here's the phrase, Lee. Here's the phrase I'm going to try to remember to make my official server tag. Is going to be ice cold. I'm just going to type ice cold. Is that offensive?
Ice dagger.
If I write ice cold in the chat, after I don't hit on the loot, will that offend or hurt anyone or not?
I just have to say, I don't know if it offends anyone. I don't know if it hurts anyone. But what it does remind me of is when Vanilla Ice teamed with Korn to
Oh my,
redo the song Ice Ice Baby as a new
what?
metal song, and it is one of the greatest experiences in
So
humankind
I think
history.
Sandow figured out what I was talking about. It's like
What's colder than gold?
what's colder than cold, ice cold, and that was from Outcast, right? From Hey Ya. So that's what I was. You can't use that word. Only I can use. Oh, Baby Ice and Iceman. No, that's Iceman 117 says that only
Yeah.
I can use that word. Well, let's make it. What if we make it a Champions Chat thing? We just write hot or cold when we hit it. When we get a hit in the
Right.
loot, we write hot. When we get a whiff in the loot, we write cold, and then it's code to every Champions Chat listener, right? And
We know
it's just our
Iceman.
way.
It's a joke. Yeah.
But you know what's going to happen too is they're going to say like he called our faction ice cold, like we've been on a hot streak. We made top 50,
Tickle
and then he,
Baker.
yeah, I know what.
Just telling
Uh,
you.
well, Lee,
Use
we're going back
gibberish.
today. Today's show is about really the subject that got us here. When we talk about
Oh.
what got us here, Champions Chat started from the beginning as a show to help you manage your roster and max the MLC. Those were the two things we set out to do. We tried to help the community. We tried to help our friends, our faction mate, way before we were content creators. We just tried to help people manage their roster well and max the MLC. We're not going to talk about the MLC too much today, but I do want to ask you this foundational question, Lee, to begin our conversation today. Lee, is the way we used to do roster strategy outdated?
Hmm.
Follow up
Hmm.
question. Follow up question. Now that the 6-star gold meta is here, and now that there are no longer weekend superstars and surprise superstars, there
Some
are surprises, but
surprises.
it's not.
Every week isn't a surprise.
Yes, now it's more of a shard recruit, long
Right.
burn to recruit 3 to 4, now to 5 even superstars a month, more systematically, more methodically through shards instead of just getting a lucky poster pull. Lee, um, does our roster strategy need to change based on what we're seeing in the new 6 gold meta and in the new structure of the MLC?
I think so. So part of what brought this up, we have a featured video, that we do every once in a while now, where I take a bunch of polls that I recorded off stream. Maybe they're key polls, maybe they're a $20 loot that I did that didn't go anywhere, so I didn't feel like posting it. And sometimes there's good things in there, but usually it's just like an hour of polls video. And set to that, I pull an episode of our podcast that never made it onto YouTube because when we originally did this, one, I didn't have one of these. We were just recording them off of my headphones, my AirPods, and you too. And two, we were just getting started. It was very early days, so we didn't have a YouTube, we didn't have a Twitch, we weren't official content creators. I mean, that was all a big surprise to us. We just thought we were doing a podcast for funsies, and it
Yeah,
turned into something else. But
it was
on
a phone
that,
call. We recorded a phone call
we
between the
did.
two of us. Just full
Yeah.
disclosure.
Right.
That was our first episodes.
It was. It was great. It was so. I mean,
Okay,
if you want to go
boomer.
back and see the early days, like where we started, where we at now, kind of
Yeah,
post. But yeah, so I've done two of those so far, and the second one was our third episode because for whatever reason I can't download our first episode ever. It's bothering me. But anyway, it's
interesting.
on. It's only on Apple. It's not on Spotify for some reason, and I can only download from Spotify. Anyway, long story short, so our third episode, second one of those was you got to have a roster strategy. And so we talked about like what it looks like to basically long-term book, which this is going to become ironic now that I'm thinking about it because we were in the previous regime and we were doing like just random stuff and we talked about how you got to switch to long-term booking, and now during the Triple H era we might have to backtrack and say it's so random now. But we were
Wow.
talking about long-term booking your roster to say, what are the characters, the classes, what modes do you need? And some of that's going to come back up right now and still be relevant. But I think the way that the game has changed, especially with the master manager events, with the
Oh
way
yeah.
that it's a shard recruit as opposed to usually anyway a get the poster in the loot sort of a era, all that. I think the long term booking approach has some problems now that we can address. So, Rusty, your thoughts on this lovely topic you chose?
So yeah, Lee, I would say going back to our bread and butter roster strategy might be something we have to revisit every new meta. It might be something we have to do. But now that we're in six gold, our podcast started over a
Six
year
silver.
ago in a different meta, and that meta was brand new to us,
Yep.
and we were exploring it. Much in the way that this six gold meta is new to us, and we're still exploring it. The first change that I would say, Lee, that's very important for us to reevaluate is that the MLC superstars are more important than they've
Yep.
ever been, right?
Yep.
So, assuming your roster strategy is something that you implement to help you advance in the game,
Yep.
right? That's what we're talking about. How do you advance in the game? How do you win? How do you get max points, max rewards? Um, so, whether you liked the final boss Rock or not, he was critically important to
Right.
that first MLC,
And the one
and
after.
that set the tone for this new reality that we're experiencing. Now, I will acknowledge not every superstar has been equally important.
True.
Charlotte felt a lot more important than Bret Hart felt. Like, we can acknowledge that there have been varying levels of importance, but what we cannot deny is we can no longer avoid superstars we simply don't like
Right.
just because we don't like them if our goal is to have a winning strategy for max rewards.
Yep.
Lee, would you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so as you've said, the new way of going about it is whatever characters are this month are going to show up very consistently through their own month and the next month at the very least. Whereas before, when it was a random superstar every weekend, sometimes they'd be required for things.
Right.
Sometimes the chase character would be required for things, but oftentimes because the chase character, which used to be an S tier, right? You got a free B tier and then you got a chase S tier. That character used to not be required for much of anything just because more people in the community got them. And therefore, it was usually much more random CSS that were required. Now, your A tier character is the chase, and fairly accessible. A larger portion of the community get the A tier chase than
Right.
used to get the S tier chase. So even for those who are like, oh, I still don't get, okay, I get that. I hear you, but a
Right.
larger portion of the community get the A tier chase. And now that A tier chase, your
Right.
Tiffy time, your Final Boss Rock, your Miz, they are being required left and right. So
Yeah.
what you need to be able to do is, at least with the A tier character, you need to be taking them to 6-star bronze as soon as you possibly can. With the
Whether you like
S,
it or not, right, Lee?
like the
Whether you
final
like it or
boss. What?
not, I feel like I have to clarify. People have been down on Tiffy a little bit. People have
Right.
been down on Final Boss, and
Yep.
yet if you want to win and get ahead in the game, you got to take them up, like
Yeah.
it or not, because
Yeah.
it's the strategy required to win. So
Yep. To get the ones you do like taken up.
we're no longer able to play favorites, picky
Right.
choosy. We don't have that luxury anymore. This is just my take,
I
right?
like that. No,
Yeah.
you're right. You're right. And then with the S tier and S plus tier, should you get them, again, as soon as you get them, you are incentivized, is the best way to
Hmm.
put it, to take them at least 5 gold, 6-star, give or take. Like, for example, this weekend, there is a middle line bonus if you have gotten Tiffy and taken her to
Right.
6-star bronze. So they're incentivizing building that A tier and that S tier character. And then
Right.
the S plus tier character, should you be one of the lucky duckies to get them. I did not get Rex Regum. I'm not even close. I did
Right.
get Trish, and yeah, we'll see with Cody. Like it's I'm far enough away, but I'm close enough
Yep.
that it could be I might have to spend to get there. But either way,
So
there's
what?
some big bonuses for that S plus tier
Right.
characters. So, like you said, you can't choose or pick and choose. You got to take them up. And then I got another thought, but I'm going to kick it back to you to keep going on this topic before we move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So here's my thought, right? Is that we have to keep in mind there are less superstars being released now. And they are more and I think this is based on feedback from the community. They matter now more than
Yeah.
ever. So, like, here's a great example of a superstar that probably didn't matter much. Is if I think back to the very end of the Six Silver meta, like, I'm not sure Karrion Cross really was a superstar that you needed to advance in the month. I'm
Right.
not sure he was someone that was must have for MLC points. Now,
Right.
great trainer, great card, or I mean not card, great
Poster.
great ability on the back. I was thinking about the poster when you flip it over like a baseball card. On the back of it,
Yeah.
there's abilities. So he has, his what he can do for boss battle, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, we get that. Karrion Cross, great. Did we need Karrion Cross? Did we have to have him? Was he must have? Was he required to win? No, he was a luxury. And they've still offered his shard. He's been you know, fairly
More
easy
accessible.
to recruit through shards into the continuing metas. But you cannot say that of Tiffany Stratton, right?
Right.
Lee's talking about the feud bonus. Let me just say this: we've been doing a week long contest where if you had Tiffany in this showdown, you're getting triple the points for every showdown just
Yep.
for running her in lane two. Maybe if you don't like
Second
her,
slot.
putting her in slot two on the showdown,
Yeah.
right? So you see how the roster strategies changed. Whether she's your best female acro or not, whether you like or appreciate her training ability, well, I think is great, especially for Ozzy.
Fozzy. Yeah. So that's why I'm taking her 6 silver when I can.
Yeah, or Hall of Fame Brutus, right? So she has a niche that she's going to help really well in Entourage. Whether you have her plate or not, whether or not you're going to pursue Naomi, I think Naomi's going to be an incredible Entourage member on Tiffany and something that's really going to help her. But
Hmm.
I would say that you can't neglect her anymore. Lee, will you take
Right.
over? I need to just pass something through the door real quick.
No, you're okay. I mean, the thing I was going to say for my side of it is the downside of this combined with, where we used to go with roster strategies versus now is before it was like, hey, pick a certain class you need, pick a certain era you need, and we'll get back to that and build them up. But the resources, it's funny because we all yelled when it was a daily coin spend that you had to do. It used to be, for those who are new to the game, that like between 8 and 20 million coin a day were required to, max the individual little tiny events. And then they rolled all of that into what they now call the Master Manager contest and then your feud prep talent ups. Now, I will say I've always recommended, in fact, you can go back to that old episode, the roster strategy. I talk about it there. I've always recommended the method of go all in, all the time, all you can. Meaning, if maxing an event and getting to milestone 7, 8, 9, or 10 means that you're going to be out of coin and you're going to be out of TP, do it. As opposed to if you can do like milestone 3 every day. Now with Master Manager, that device doesn't exactly hold the same way. But what does hold and what is a challenge, especially for me, is that I have a 10 million roster, so I've moved up from being kind of a scrub player to a minnow or maybe a dolphin in some senses, and I don't have resources to take up characters I'm getting anymore. Good examples right off the bat. One is it took me everything I had just to take Tiffy 6-star this week. Second big example is Bret Hart. I don't have the shards to take Bret Hart to 6 star even. He's 5 star gold. When Trish came out, I did prioritize her over some others, so I was able to take her 6 gold. I was able to take Miz 6 gold. But if I had gone for Naomi, which I didn't pull for her for this one reason, the Bret Hart paradox, I'll call it here, is I don't have shards. So if I had pulled Naomi, I would not be able to touch her. And so the new wrinkle to this era is that you have to really pay attention to what resources you need. For me, aside from shards, TP is desperately low. Desperately low. And I got a couple more things to say on this real quick, but I mean, again, like taking Trish to gold, I had to go back to the old way of using the Godfather to grind tours to get 5 purple TP every 6 matches and get 6,000 purple TP in order to take her gold. I didn't have it. I am, as of this moment, completely out of 2 colors of TP. I have 0. I got a 100 bag, so my red is now sitting at 100 TP. But that changes my roster strategy dramatically because now I'm looking at every new character that I get. Do they have red or purple TP? Because if so, I can't touch them without grinding endlessly. So that's a big change.
So let me say 2 things to that, Lee. You're right. Yes, right?
Yeah.
There is a TP. What used to feel like the token shortage is now the TP shortage.
Yep.
So 2 thoughts on that. Number 1, the Master Manager contests matter more than ever, that you use them and stop, which is counterintuitive sometimes, right? When you gotta, but also there used to be daily coin and TP events, right?
I just talked about that.
But here's the thing, Lee, is like, I literally make a list. I make an Apple note, and you were the one that taught me this. Yeah. I make a note, and it's just like a budget. The way I direct where my money goes, I direct where my TP goes. Now, you've got a superstar list. You taught me about the superstar list. What you do is you open the game, you screenshot, you edit edit the square around the superstar.
We'll call it a postage stamp in that case.
Yeah, stamp. Then you send it to your note. What I've started doing is writing out red, yellow, green, black, blue, right? And I list the name of the superstars that use those colors. So when a Master Manager or a Talent Up goes, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at Zombie Liv. She's first on my list for red and yellow, or whoever it is, right? For example, she's a example. Now she is my best female powerhouse, right? So I'm
most people.
I'm a couple of betas behind you. I'm working up Zombie Liv right now.
No, she's good. She's just not phenomenal, but yeah.
Well, so that's where Sensei Kreese wrote in the chat, he uses Excel spreadsheet to do all that, right? But if you don't have it written out or planned, you will likely overspend, misspend, forget people, overlook them. You'll bypass them. You go, oh no, I just put 1,000 green into Karrion Kross, and I really needed that for the new Naomi, right? It's like whatever that is. Like how many? We've all done that. We've all done that, and yet I've noticed it even more importantly to stop. Maybe when I get to the gold chest, and if I don't have it, don't push it. Don't go into the bonus. If you can't afford it, don't chase it, right? And I would say the same is true as you selectively choose items from the MLC prize wall. I think I would say in the roster strategy world now, I would quantify my spending by saying perhaps the pro start pack might be the best money spent in the game. The first week of the MLC to get the pro start with the mega and the MLC loot, and the half price prize wall all month long is arguably better than any mega that will be offered in the month.
Yep.
And you get more for it. And you get portal shop bonuses in the extras,
Yep.
right? And those oftentimes, like this month, for example, if you would have went deep into that portal store extra milestones, you would have actually gotten Brutus's gear at the kickoff. It was hanging out in the shop, and you would have got it from now we're talking pretty deep into the
You're talking about
milestones.
the you got Brutus's gear from the Hall of Fame event that they did.
No, Brutus
Oh,
Creed,
Creed. Okay,
Rico.
sorry. He doesn't
Brutus
exist for me. He's
Creed.
horrible in the game. I thought you were talking
Yeah,
about Hall of Fame
yeah.
Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
But
Never
what I'm
mind.
saying is
Scratch that.
that's there are going in early, even week one, there are some actual quote guarantees that can set you up really well in the month. Yeah,
Yeah.
Brutus Creed's gear. The same was true of Maurice's gear last month.
I didn't
I've
get either of
noticed
those. Huh.
I don't have either because I didn't go that far in the kickoff event,
Gotcha.
right? But what I'm saying is like if you're looking for a place to invest your your money, right? If you want to maximize your spending, I'm not encouraging spending if you don't have it. I'm
Right.
saying if you are a spender and you want to spend wisely, you might want to check out that kickoff flagship offer and
Yeah.
the goal. So it's one of the best things for roster management that can position you to get
Right.
more resources all month long, get more TP, get more coin, get all of the things that keep you going and winning. Get a half price MLC prize wall. Bang
Right.
for the buck. I don't know that there's a better offer in the game all month.
Yeah, I mean, what you give up is you give up the dopamine hit of the mega pull, right? That gives you such a rush, and that's what you chase is that high. So you have to use your human brain versus your animalistic brain. Your animalistic reactive brain is like, oh, just go for the fun, go for the hit, go for the hit, go for the hit. But if you circumvent that and just use your logic brain and say, hey, if
Yeah.
I'm going to spend, and that's the question mark, not should you, but if you are, then doing the kickoff pass for 100 US dollars is greater value over the course of a month by far than one mega is. And
Right.
I mean, now,
And
of course, what if you hit big on that one mega? Yeah, what if? But how often do
what?
we? I mean, we do a lot of polls videos nowadays, and
Usually they're
most of
bad.
them are nothing. They're bad,
Usually
bad.
they're bad.
They're bad, bad. Yeah,
Lee, not only is it a better use of your money versus a mega, I would say the way I spent traditionally, it was a better use than the way I used to spend with the King of Kings pass and the Backstage pass. Arguably, 4 weeks of King of Kings and 4 weeks of Backstage pass,
yeah,
I think you're actually saving there and getting more, or it's commensurate to. It's
yeah,
either a close spend, but you're just paying up front versus incrementally paying. I
right,
think you get more of the MLC getting the kickoff than you would combining those two purchases, which many people are doing through
right,
what is called a micro transaction. I think you do one hit, boom,
right.
start of the month, curb your spending, and
Yeah,
see how far you can go on that one spend. Like, see how
right.
far it can take you. That's all I'm going to say about
Yeah.
spending. Now, I'm
Well,
talking to arguably the person that wants to play competitively and that is already accustomed to spending, and I'm just trying to get them to spend wisely.
yep.
That's my goal.
No, I appreciate that. And let me segue from that into our next piece for it, which is yes, everything you just said absolutely holds water. And the other thing that I think is more recent, I mean, the leagues have been in the game forever, but with where they did the three leagues back to back to back, I think that
Oh,
changed some things too because again, 10 million roster, I do polls at least 1 mega a week for the stream for the content and all that kind of stuff. I am still struggling to get from 23 to 24. And a big part of that is that you have to take 10 characters to max 6-star gold, which, by the way, just to get them to 6-star gold is in the 500 million plus coin. To go from 6-star gold, where you just moved them from 6 silver to max 6-star gold, 350 million coins, give or take. So now you're talking about, like, I'm changing my roster strategy around. And the way this comes into what you just said, where it's kind of a shoehorn segue, is I use the kickoff pass to get the half price prize wall. And then over the course of the month, paywall, it is a paywall, over the course of the
Freudian
month,
slip, my friend. Freudian slip.
whoopsies, tickle baker. I use that to at least once, but hopefully twice in the month,
Yeah.
hit the big baller or whatever it's called. It's 500 million coin, right? And so my
Yes.
goal is to use that to take 1 to 2 characters per month from 6 silver into 6 gold to max 6-star gold. So entry
Oh,
6 gold to max 6 gold, because it's going to take me, I have 3 right now, which, by the way, I need to send Gerson a screenshot, because actually only 2 of them are counting, but I clearly have 3 on my roster. I need 7 more. That's 3 billion coins to get
that's a
that done.
really good. Listen, you just
3
said something
billion.
I've never heard before as far as roster strategy, using the 500 million MLC prize wall coins to max a 6-star gold. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. I've not considered that. I
Yeah.
do what I tell people not to do oftentimes is I spread the wealth into a bunch of different things. I usually
Right.
take up someone around 250 million. I get them from, bronze to silver or something
Right.
like that, and then Evo them. Oftentimes I leave my 6 gold people just
Unleveled. Hmm.
unleveled. Is
Yep.
that is
That's
that bad?
absolutely.
Is
That's
that
what
bad
most people are
strategy?
doing.
Is it
No, I
bad
mean, well, it
strategy?
depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to get to League 24, it's a bad strategy.
My
For
goal is to
me,
win
it's a bad
this
strategy.
game, to be the winner of this game.
You want to win the DVD Invitational? So, wow. Yeah, it just depends on what
I
your
want to
goal
be one
is.
true king's known nemesis.
Ooh, you better start.
Just
Let's
kidding.
just say
I
you better
really
ramp it
like.
up. That's all I gotta say.
Let,
You better
let
ramp
me
it
just
up.
say this. Shout out to One True King. We DM'd recently, and I thought, what a gracious person to handle. I sent some questions to One True. Very kind, very
Hmm.
patient response. And
Nice.
I mean, easily could have just said, "I don't have time for this. This is
Right.
elementary. Figure
Right.
it out yourself," like I did. Right?
Yeah.
Incredibly kind response. So
That's awesome. Well, I
yeah.
mean, again, it depends on your goal. So my goal is to get to League 24 as soon as I can. But that
Mm.
means not only 7 more characters have to go max 6-star gold at a cost of 3 billion coins when well, okay, so here's a good example. With the last feud prep talent up, because I bought that 500 million hit, I finally got it and took William Regal up. I went from 1.7 billion coins in 20 minutes down to 500 million. And I only took 2 characters up, two two of them.
So
So that means I've got a long road ahead of me there, and that's just coin. There is
right.
also the other milestone I haven't hit is TP, and you have to take 70 moves to max 6-star gold at a cost of 4,000 TP from silver to gold. So TP for me is a huge issue. I mean, again, I just admitted that I grinded it with the Godfather for hours passively trying to get enough purple TP to take Trish up. That was just to get her gold. If I were to max her moves, I would need 12,000 TP of purple to max her 3 purple moves. And that would still only be a drop in the bucket because I'm at like 17 out of 70 something moves. So my
Wow.
goal has shifted to getting to League 24 as soon as possible. And that feels months away.
Now,
Months.
Lee, would you speak to
Whew.
the person in the game who may be just over League 17, 18, who's thinking, okay, that's whale talk. Gosh, I'm so far from that. What do they need to be thinking about the league where they're at?
I mean, if you're in League 17 or 18, I think you're doing pretty well. And I mean, me getting to level 24 isn't going to change everything. It's just there there are a lot of resources that as you go up into the leagues that you start to get. And especially like me leaguing from 23 when I do league to 24, I will already have hit about half of the milestones, half of the things and get the resources for them because they're things that are already happening passively. Like I've gotten to a certain, overall score and some of those type things. But it also gives me something to do because there are times in this game where, I mean, like this week, there's been so much to do I couldn't even keep up, right? And then there are some days where, and it always falls on the day where I have the most amount of time and I don't want to be doing something else. Like I just want my brain to turn off. This is my only hobby, right? I have 4 other things I do almost full time. This is the only hobby I have to take my brain off, and there's nothing to do. So getting the league rewards gives me something to do. In fact, I have suggested, I'll say it publicly, I suggested it privately to Scopely, I have suggested sunsetting the old faction tiers concept, because who cares if you're a tier 98 or 105 or whatever faction? Nobody looks at that anymore. It doesn't do anything functionally. And instead switching to a league system for factions that is very similar to the individual leagues but has a 100x multiplier on the milestone. So like your faction has a requirement to beat 5,000 feud matches or what, it'd probably have to be 50 or whatever, 50,000, but whatever it is, because then it gives me something to do when there's nothing else to do, plus all of the rewards that come with that. That's a 3 on the Enneagram that needs something to check off, though. That's not everybody.
Yeah. So we've got some pretty cool things coming in the chat I want to highlight about
Yeah.
roster strategy. Jason JA10 said, I usually always leave my 6-star golds unleveled when I take them up. But if you do level them up all the way, it usually adds about another 10% in gym damage. So if I need that, then I begin to level it up. So that's a really good thought. Secondly, Telvin 526 is talking about the road tours, right? Mm-hmm. So you're sharing about the importance of league and league up. And what's important to remember, too, is that those leagues, usually when the league was introduced, it also introduced a new road tour, and the road tour is full of resources as well. For example, once you get into league, is it 23 league, and then it unlocks the Backlash tour.
Yep.
That's a trove of treasure, my friend. It is 6-star gold tokens all around. It's what you need to enter this meta. So let me just say, for those players who may not yet be to League 23, you need to proactively work towards that so that you can then unlock the Backlash tour on the road so that you can get all of that resource to then, that's the fuel that you need to, to burn as far as getting your roster leveled up. Lee, can we switch subjects for a second on roster strategy and talk about this? How you doing with your stipulation tours, buddy?
I hate stipulation tour. For someone just said I need something to check off every day in the game. I don't know why. I don't have Undertaker still. IOW Undertaker. And there's something in me that's like, I just don't want to do this. So I will go through fits where I will use all of my cash, in-game cash, to just spam Stip Tour over and over and over again. And I'm like, I'm maybe halfway to Undertaker. But you got to do them, right? Like I have to kick myself in the butt and say, I don't care. Like that I can do passively. I can literally set it on autoplay and let it play itself every day. And there's just something in me that is just defiant. Like, screw that. I'm not going to do it. I hate
That's
it.
wild, bro. That's wild. I did it. I did the work. I paid the price, and I was able to recruit IOW Undertaker, but you and I started that chase around the same time when we
And I'm
had our
halfway
Iron
there.
Sheik 84 episode. The first time Iron Sheik 84 was on, and he revealed the fastest way to get Undertaker, kind of taught us the strategy. And I worked the steps. I now
Yeah.
have my powerhouse IOW promoters. So let's say
Mm.
this: if you're out there
Mm.
and you don't have if you don't prioritize your stipulation tours each
Yeah.
day so that you can get the tickets to then do the marquee tour so that then you can get your IOW Undertaker for your
Mm.
feud promoter to powerhouses, guys, you gotta you just it's a grind. There's some
Right.
things in this game that you cannot buy, right? Time being one of them, the grind being one of them. IOW Undertaker is a free to play character, but you have to play to get him. And so I think it's a very important part of the roster strategy because your promoters amplify your score.
Yep.
So we all want to have high scores. We all want to get better rewards. You get better
Yep.
rewards from higher scores. You get higher scores from amplifying your score,
Right.
right? I'm ahead of you, Lee, in
You
the
are.
Cody Shard chase this month, and
You
I
are.
would attribute it. I would attribute it to this. I have used my high level IOW notoriety promoters in the Aussie Showdown to get higher on the leaderboard to get more Cody Shards than you, even though we've both done the same amount of Showdown work. My stip tours were anyway how I
Yeah.
funded all that stuff. So your
Right.
Showdown notoriety
Mm-hmm.
promoters, your Showdown coin promoters, your
Yeah.
feud
Great
promoters, your
example for
boss
that.
battle coin promoters.
Right.
Those take a long time to
Very
build
long.
up. A long
Yeah.
time.
Well,
So
here's
every
a good
day,
example for that to kind of highlight what you're saying. Right now, if you watched my polls video, not well, watch Rusty's too. It's just highly you got to root for him. Anyway, but right at the start of that video, I pointed out that in a faction milestone on a bag this week, I got Ozzy's gear. Like that never happens to me kind of thing. So now I'm chasing Ozzy's plate as hard as I possibly can, and I am barely not even halfway to the amount of coins that I need, and I've gone hard. So we're talking to Merrick's yesterday, and Merrick's was like, well, if you leaderboard on the showdown, you'll get a bunch of those resources. And I was like, I've literally never tried to leaderboard, period. It's just not even in my vocabulary, and I don't have to get to number one. Like if I'm in the top 200 on the
right?
leaderboard, I'll get what I need. And so I switched. He and I and you and I were talking, the three of us. And he said, well, I have one of my IOW promoters maxed, and I have an affiliation strap for them. So I just ran that class and just
Wow.
went hard after it. And I literally took that conversation to heart. I looked, and Trickster is my IOW promoter that I have the highest. They're not maxed. I'm not
Right.
getting 250% notoriety bonus. I'm getting 150% notoriety bonus. But just making that change midstream last night, I made it to 70 something is what I am right now on the leaderboard. And that was just purely focusing on the IOW promoter, and that's it. So now I'm going, because it's the Tech Austin. Now I'm going, how do I get him to 5 gold? Because that's where I max that out, so that every
Yes.
time there's a showdown, if I want to leaderboard, I just need to run double tricksters and go, and it's working. It's working really well for me, but it's all based
Yep.
around having that IOW promoter.
Yeah. Hey, let me say this. In the chat and in our back of our mind, we all know it. Gold IOW tokens are hard to come by. Every
Yeah.
day they reset, every single day they reset in your faction shop.
Yep.
Really, they're the most important thing. They're the most
Right.
important thing. Of course, your boss battle tokens matter as well,
Yeah.
but it doesn't take much to work up a pretty sizable inventory of faction shop currency, right?
Right.
Now, in-game cash is a little more lean. So here's what
Right.
you can do. Each day, each day, you can grab the gold IOW token, and if you have a little in-game cash, or if you're one of those people that do tap joy offers or play side games or try to work up in-game cash, each day you can reset your faction shop once for 300 in-game cash, and you
Mm.
can grab a second token. That doesn't seem like a big deal, but what you've just done is doubled your efforts,
Yep.
aka cut the time in half that it takes to get the token amount that
Right.
you need for that promoter.
Yep.
So if you're a hoarder that's sitting on a lot of in-game cash, which I know there's a pretty sizable
There's
amount of the
some.
community that saves resources, right?
Yeah.
So start dropping 300 in-game cash each day and grabbing 2 gold coins.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to reset it a second time, I think it's 450. If you want to reset it a third time, I think it's 600. I think it goes up 150 in-game cash each time you reset it. Now we're talking about tripling, quadrupling the speed in which you can work up those
Yeah.
IOW promoters. But yes, it
Mm.
takes faction shop currency and it takes in-game cash to do that. But with that strategy, you're going to get there way
A
faster,
lot
much faster.
faster.
I
Right.
don't want to use a big word. You're going to get there exceedingly faster
That's a
doing
good word.
that. The same is true with the
Yeah.
boss battle promoters, recruiting them. When that boss battle shop
Mhm.
is live and you grab, you reset the shop to grab that special Trish shards that you're trying to chase or the Cody shards. Well, you also, why don't you grab those, Rey Mysterio
Right.
promoter as well? So,
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. That's another part of the roster strategy that is a good segue. Is you have your faction shop that we're talking about that has the IOW tokens. It's got boss battle, boss breaker currency, and it has Charlotte gear. So all three of those may play into your roster strategy. Boss breaker currency is vital for boss battle. We talked about this when on the original you got to have a roster strategy is picking one character that you're going to go all in to get their boss breaker to level 10. Now, here's where in the year update since my character that I went all in on for the boss breaker currency for focused class was Zombie Steamboat. And I didn't regret that move at all. He has been a walloper, a monster in boss battle. However, his abilities are declining as the 6-star gold meta goes on, and now I have William Regal plus gear, 1 gear, plus 100% gym damage trap, pyro plate. I've got, like, he's my biggest Megazord that I've got now. I'm only missing his second gear, but I cannot get him beyond level 8 boss breaker. I mean, I've been trying for a while, so every time those focused shards show up for the boss breaker currency, I do that. However, then Merrick's again showed everybody in the community how frankly astounding Charlotte Flair is with all of her gears. And I decided I was going to take her up because I don't have a good showboat female that is my go-to. I've got every other class, it feels like, in females, but showboats, Lita, I've got the Chase Lita, I've got the Chase Bailey, who else? I don't know, but I don't have your Jade Cargill. I don't have your, whatever. So Charlotte's going to be mine. So now I'm chasing the gear. That grind, that chase has taken me 3 months, and I still need the very biggest gear, which is the one that costs like 680,000 of that currency, which means right. I am setting aside temporarily getting the gold token for IOW. I'm setting aside getting focused boss breaker currency because if I go a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit there, I'll never get any of them. But if I focus on Charlotte, I'm a month away. I will have all of her gears, and then I can focus right back in on getting gold tokens. I can focus right back in on getting focused boss breaker currency. So that one shop impacts 3 major areas of my roster.
Right. No, see, that's good. You've got a roster strategy, right? That's
Yeah.
every strategy is going to be different. Everybody's path, because their needs are different, and what they need is going to vary, even at points in the game. Lee, let me ask you this. We've talked a lot about the importance of MLC superstars. We've talked about the importance of leagues and tours. We've talked about our STIP tours and our IOW
IOWs.
promoters. Lee, I'm curious about. I think this is a very important piece of roster strategy that's new to 6-star gold, and that we gave outdated advice for 6-star silver. Um,
Well, we
how
gave good
important?
advice then. Now it's
Right,
outdated.
right. It's
Yeah.
outdated now. If you were to go pull up our
Right.
old episode,
Right. Right.
we would say, no, 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 don't do that. How important are these? I think they're newer, but maybe they've always been around, but percentage based entourage members.
Oh.
For
Yeah.
example, I've used
Yeah.
Carrying Cross quite a bit today. Now, Carrying Cross is a
30% red.
percentage based coach. He does
Mm-hmm.
30% red move damage, 30% red gem damage.
Yep.
Now, in the 6 bronze, 6 silver meta, that would have been kind of crappy. Like
Nothing.
I would not have been excited about that, and I still would have wanted my 12K Stacy Keebler
Right.
as my coach. Talk to me about the shift from
Yeah.
flat damage now to percentage damages at 6 gold.
Well, you're right, because in our previous iteration of this 1 year ago, by the way, our first episode ever was called The 6-Star Silver Meta Has Begun. And so that episode was number 3. So if it helps you, like we were 3 weeks into 6-Star Silver when we last talked about this in a formal way. And what shifted was just purely, and we've talked about this before, but purely the fact that gem damage doubled going into 6-star gold. And that's your base gem damage. So before, your 12K flat promoters, which is what we said every episode, you got to get your flat promoters up. You got to get your flat gem. And people go, what is flat gem damage? I don't understand. It's anybody who does 12K, which was the standard at the time, on any color gem, any type of gem, like a mobile gem or color turn gems, whatever, all of that, you need to get them all there. Well, now the math simply shifted, because once we doubled the base damage, the reality became where, and we did a video on it, and then DJ talked about it on stream, did a video on it, Merrick's did a video on it. Watch all of them, because we all kind of prove each other's point, which is at 6-star gold, max, but even when you get started, 30% is greater than, on your primary color, even an 18K promoter. 30% is roughly 22,000 on a primary color. So what does that mean? It means if you're talking about Trish, Trish, the new Trish, I'm using her a lot right now because of the aforementioned showdown. Her primary color is purple. So she makes red gems, and that's important for a point that I'm going to make in just a moment. But if I am destroying purple gems, 30% is greater than, even if you could have, because as of this recording, there's not flat 18K gem color trainers. But even if you had Santa Hogan at 6-star silver, which we have on our tests account, of course, he's 18K flat to every color. He's the only one, even above and beyond Santa Hogan. Now, if you get to your secondary color, so Trish's secondary color is red, it doesn't work out that it's better than an 18K flat trainer, but it is still far and away better than a 12K flat gem trainer, because it's roughly 15, 16,000, somewhere in that range. I forget the math, but either way, it's better. So your 30% or above gem damage trainers, not move damage right now, because we're not in a move damage meta, although this will circle back around, mark that. But your percentage gem damage, 30% or above, are absolutely priority. And you'll notice most of the trainers they're starting to release, trainers and coaches, are 30% or above on their abilities. So like Bret Hart is now the first one that does multiple colors at 35% as opposed to 30%. Ozzy does multiple colors at 30%. Naomi now does, I'm sorry, Naomi's a trainer, but now you'll see on the trainers, they're starting to do the trainer ability. Coaching ability seems to be capped at about 30% average. They're starting to do the trainer abilities at 60%. Now your trainer slots, you've got to make sure that you've got enough MP to get started. So there's a trade-off there. But let's say you get the new Naomi, 60%. That's like double 30%. And so you can really stack the damage this way. But percentage over flat in the gold meta so far.
What I'm seeing too is there are trainers that are doing 50+%, and yet they're not necessarily paired with the same color of MP that the gym it creates. So they're getting creative with move sets. I think Tiffany Stratton might be a great example. We're seeing something with blue and purple, right? Triple blue, she works great, but she doesn't hit as hard as we'd like. And yet her plate is when you hit a purple move, you increase blue gem damage. And then Naomi came out later the same month, and you go, wait a second, Naomi does the same thing. She boosts purple moves and blue gems. There might be a theme here. So rather than waiting for a moment to save Tiffany Stratton, it looks like her Voltron build is coming through a variety of pieces that have a blue and purple theme, right? And that may continue to evolve in the coming months. We don't know what's coming out in the future. But I thought that was interesting. Like Charlotte Flair, right? She's boosting yellow MP and red gems, or red MP and yellow gems, right? So she does and same thing with Bubba Ray Dudley, right? He's doing blue and red. You're like, wait a second, So now we're seeing creative entourages. Right. They support more than just one thing. Julius and Brutus Creed are a great example of a special gym type, a special different color MP type, and a different color gym type, right? All rolled into one, 3 distinct entourage abilities. And it looks like this is a trend that's, I would say, arguably is going to continue. So now you have to pay a lot more attention to the diversity of colors that are in builds and the opportunities that they're actually unfolding and resurrecting older characters. Some things have come out where you just go like, wait a second, I think my EO Sky might really benefit from that, right? Or someone who may not be on your radar as the newest, and we're seeing, with the 7th anniversary plates, we're really the start of that. Yeah, color combinations that had never been supported before were suddenly being supported, and then we saw Cesaro creating a slew of videos about new,
as he does.
Totally new ideas and new concepts. So really cool time in the game, I think.
I agree. And just real quick before we transition into WWE TV talk, because I got to get to work here in a few, just to point out though, and this is just me, like Rusty, you started with your apology tour. This is my apology tour now. Every once in a while, since I do, the bulk of our breakdown videos and things like that, I'll get comments from people like, why didn't you use this trainer? Why didn't you use this entourage? Why didn't you use this plate? Why didn't you use, okay, let me just give myself a pass. It's not an excuse because I need to work, on those things better, but I don't get paid for this, guys. I mean, the YouTube channel's monetized, but other than that, like, we're not making, any profit by the end of the month. We're putting it back into our stuff. There are now 600 characters in the game, which means there's 600 trainer or entourage or IOW promoter combinations. There are so many plates now. There are so many strap combinations now. There are so many blah, blah, blah. So when I get it wrong, just have a little grace every once in a while. Because I try to look through all the plates, all the trainers, but especially the trainers. Because plates, okay, at least there's only 100 of them. There are 600 entourage abilities. So every time somebody's like, oh, you totally missed the boat, you should have used this person instead of that person, I'm like, I get it. But when you are doing, you said there's less characters. There's actually 6 again this month. There was 5 last month. So over the last 2 months, there's only been 1 less character than there used to be. And 6 characters with 4 to 5 move sets each, which require you to think through the entourage, every single move set differently. And there's 600 possible entourages. I'm literally in my brain with every character trying to take account for 1,200 possible trainer and entourage abilities, and that is on the safe side. And then I've got to think through and which plate goes with that. So not giving myself an excuse here, but my goodness, if I get it wrong, just please call it out. Please tell the community, because I want everybody to know. And I'd rather say a character isn't as good as they actually are than tell everyone this is the greatest character ever and then they suck. So but that's real. Like I went through that yesterday with Naomi going, okay, triple green, I need this trainer, this trainer, this trainer, this trainer, and there's like 17 possible trainers just for the first 2 slots. So, like that are valid, that is. I mean, there's 600 or 300 possible trainers, but anyway, that's my little apology to a rant. You bring us back on track, Rusty.
That's great, Lee. Thanks for just modeling the humility that's behind your videos, and obviously, yeah,
Oops.
with 600 superstars and plates and moments all tied into that, no doubt you're going to have a different way of demonstrating the gameplay than someone that might be using that. A great example, right, is my should you take Judgment Day Damian Priest to 6-star
Yeah.
gold. They re-record it 3 separate times because my friends that were Damian Priest enthusiasts and experts kept
Right.
saying, "No, there's a better way. There's an even better way." Right.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and if
well,
we
shoot.
worked them out with the community on stream, like we're going to do, Friday night for at least one character and stuff like that, that's a different story because then you get multiple brains on it. And I'm convinced Sir Zorro has 17 brains just inside one head because he just always gets it, and sees what everybody else doesn't see. But unless you're Sir Zorro, having 100 or 200 people on stream go, hey, try this, try this. But the reality is, we are tapped out for the amount of time that we can give to our content creation. Like we both have full-time jobs. I'm about to have 2 full-time jobs, and this, right? So we can't always employ the assets and tools that we would need to be able to do it, 150%. So you have to sometimes just go, that was their 100%. But I will say we get it right far more often than we get it wrong. So there you go.
Nice, and I agree. Hey, Lee, as we shift our attention now into the real world of professional wrestling, this weekend is SummerSlam, streaming live Saturday, August 3rd at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific on Peacock in the United States and the WWE Network everywhere else. You want to run
Right.
down the with me and do
Yeah.
some SummerSlam predictions?
Let's do it. I'm excited for this SummerSlam, or at least one match
Well,
that matters to me.
our first match on the card. Now, this is not the official event card. This is not the
Right.
order of match priority or
Subject to
importance.
change.
I'm going to run down the card as listed on the WWE.com website. The first match on the thing is Intercontinental Champion Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker. I call him Breaker. Braun Breaker.
Yeah.
Intercontinental Championship changing hands, Lee. What you got?
Yeah, I call him, I think it was Davey D who coined Bronathan Breakerson. So I've in my brain called him Bronathan Breakerson ever since.
Perfect.
Davey D, a content creator for this game. Check him out. Anyway, yeah, I think Braun should have won last month, and the fact that they ran back the feud means I think that they agree. I'm not against Sammy. I find him quite entertaining. I still don't think he was the guy that should have broke Gunther's title run, and I still don't think they've done a whole lot with his title run other than with the IC. Other than I think that and this will be controversial, but I was on board with Sammy beating Roman before Cody's story stuff was really
Wow.
hot. I was on board with Cody or Sammy being the one to break Roman's streak because I really think that was probably the last chance Sammy had to go for the world title. Now maybe the world, like the one that Damian Priest holds right now, maybe he could go for that one, the
I
secondary
agree.
title, but that was his last chance to have a world title run. So I think this IC title run was the but here's us to show that we appreciate you. I think Braun needs to take it, and I think they need to take it in much more interesting directions now, and I think Braun can do that. So I'm
Yeah,
voting Braun.
they can't continue to hand Braun losses on
Yeah,
premium matches. It
weird,
does not make sense. They've built
weird.
this guy up like a Goldberg type
Goldberg
of machine,
3.0. Yeah,
and yet Goldberg was not handed losses, right? He had a streak. I
yeah,
think Ron Breaker needs a streak, and I think that streak needs to begin this Saturday at SummerSlam against Sammy. The Intercontinental title deserves a heel champion
I
to
agree.
make it relevant and interesting. And
I
I think
agree.
Braun Breaker could be that guy. I've got Braun going over, but you know what? I think he's going to go over as a heel. I think he's
Yeah,
going to do
of course.
some, he's going to grab the trunks, or he's going to put his feet on the ropes, or he's going to hit Sammy with a brass knuckles, maybe a page out of Logan Paul's playbook. But I think
Right.
something he's going to get the dirty business,
I
or
agree.
or they're going to throw some kind of bloodline heat at
Ugh,
this.
let's not.
Maybe backstage, Sammy is mysteriously jumped, comes to the ring with a knee injury.
Oh, that'd be
Braun has an
funny.
easy squash match. What it does is position Sammy to re enter the Jey Uso allegiance and to build up the kind of old bloodline that we loved as
Right.
heels becoming babyface bloodline. I think this might be the show to do it. And I think it might
No, I
build
think
to
so
a
too.
Survivor Series.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. You said Braun needs a streak, and I would add they also need to build him in a way that leaves a streak in his opponent's pants. Like he needs to be that level of like, oh gosh, he's coming to the ring. I hope I don't die. Like that's the
Streak, the,
feeling.
the streak that Braun Breaker begins is a brown streak. Is that what you're
That's
saying?
right. I should have worn the brown pants today. Is what I'm saying. Yes, like yay.
Next on the card, United States champion Logan Paul taking on the hot and cold, is he relevant, is he Knight, LA Knight. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. They should have again, Roman's world title reign was great up until it wasn't. But the sacrifice that it cost us, my sacrifice was LA Knight. That he took the biggest hit from everybody. He should have been the next Hulk Hogan Macho Man combination of a
Wow.
character.
Wow.
And they just haven't gotten him there. Now, is it a slow play? Triple H loves his long game, blah blah blah. I think this, as much as Braun needs that title, I will keep the IC title on Sammy all day to make sure LA Knight gets the US title cuz that could
I
be the proving ground for LA Knight to finally say, is he actually transcendent or did he just have a really good extended moment?
I've got Logan Paul going over on LA Knight.
Oof,
I
no.
don't can afford to take this belt off Logan yet, and I think it's going to set up
No.
a rubber match at Bad Blood, which is
Oof.
coming up next month. What would
No.
like a backlash type scenario
Mm.
is that LA Knight loses with some sort of chicanery. We've seen the
Mm.
brass knuckles. Logan Paul is the primary sponsor of WWE TV. He's the center
It's
ring
true.
prime sponsor. They've got to keep him relevant, and they need to keep him dastardly.
Mm.
I think they're going to screw LA Knight again, and I think it's going to make him more interesting. And they need to create more build for LA Knight to really get his flowers. He's been too hot or cold,
He's
too
been
hit or
deflowered.
miss, too front seat, back seat. And I think this is not the pay per view to do it. I don't
Mm.
think anyone
Mm.
is anticipating an exciting LA Knight match. I don't know. I don't know. Now, what they need to do is let Knight eat a loss here and then elevate the stakes. Let this thing go to a Hell in the Cell
Oh,
or a
okay.
street fight or a no holds barred backroom brawl where
Hmm.
LA Knight can demonstrate his lack of in-ring ability through more interesting storytelling. And I think that is what's going to get him over into a title reign.
Well, I hope you're right, but so far I am 2 for 2 on the titles need to change hands.
And Iceman says they're not going to feed Logan Paul a loss in his home state of Ohio, right? So this thing's in Cleveland with the Miz hosting. I don't know, just something to think about. I don't
Hmm.
know that in the old era, Lee, the old
It would have been a
administration was
guaranteed
all about
loss.
they were all about the comeuppance
Hmm.
also. They were
Yeah.
all about you're going to go over 4 or 5 times and then you're going to get a humiliating loss. I
Right.
don't think they're going to do that to Logan Paul. I don't think
Hmm.
he's going to be humiliated because I think he brings a prestige and an eyes outside the company to the product. So I just don't
Wow.
see him handing him that. I just don't see it happening.
Well, if you're
Um,
if you're on your Champions Chat predictions, we have the same vote for the first one, but opposite votes for the second one, so we can see if there's a winner.
Women's champion Bailey takes on women's Queen of the Ring, Nia Jax, in the women's WWE Women's Championship match.
Mm.
Probably the least interesting match on the card. Lee is struggling even to find a relevant statement about this match, but I'll let him
No,
take
I,
it.
I I have one. I was going to say my prediction for this match is 100% guaranteed to be accurate. I am going to hold back my bowel movements until this match happens, and I will be in the restroom probably through the
Yes,
whole 10 minutes that this match
this is the
goes on.
concession stand match of the night. This is when I go get popcorn. This
Right.
is when I go look for an icy. I stretch my legs. If I'm in that stadium, the only thing that's going to keep me in my seat for this match is the hope and the anticipation that Tiffany Stratton comes out and cashes in and takes this title. And that's my prediction for this match. Who wins
Mm.
it? Not Bailey, not Nia. It's going to be Nia Jax squashing Bailey, crushing her chest, and then Tiffany pummeling Nia with the briefcase, knocking her unconscious, cashing in, and taking this belt off the least interesting
Mm.
champion in recent WWE TV.
Period of any gender, any title in any class. Yes, I'm going to agree and disagree. I think just because in order to keep the prediction train going, I have to give an answer, even though I don't give a crap. I would say Nia's going to win, and then I think they tease the cash in, but I don't think it happens. I think this is
Mm.
the dissension between Tiffy and Nia.
I think you could be right, and Bad Bruce writes in the chat, right, that I
Yeah,
don't think she'll cash in because they want to sell replica pink briefcases for the next 6 months, and maybe that's
right,
true. That is a
right,
financial engine that we haven't considered about this match. But I'm
right.
sticking with my original prediction. Now we have the
Yeah.
turnabout match, the most
Mm.
perhaps interesting match on the card.
Ooh.
We have
Pumpkin Juice.
women's world champion Liv Morgan, who is getting virally, retweeted, reposted on
Right.
online. She has got as much, views and clicks and stuff from her wearing the shorty shorts and the crying and the Dominic, I hate you, I love you, I hate
Daddy
you, the
Dom.
twist of fate that's happened to Liv. Suddenly are we going to see this all pay off? Is this story coming to a close with the
No.
reemergence of Rhea Ripley? Or are we going to see something? Are we going to see Dominic interfere? What do you think we're going to see during this match, Lee?
I think this is a story continuer match, not a story ender match. I could see them taking this match all the way to Mania, although I don't know
Oh,
if I'm
wow.
interested to Mania, but I think that I don't want to say that I predict Dom switches sides to Live, but I think that they're going to lean it more that way. Like something happens where if you understand it in context, it's very clear that Dom has shifted sides, but he plays it off like, "Oh, that was such an accident. I'm so sorry, mommy." And he's going to play her for a little while longer. And then they're going to do some like master manipulator reveal where Liv is like, "Ha ha ha ha." And Dom strung you along for those long months where he was really on my side and he's been betraying. And then they're going to like show scenes of where Dom like in ways that feel subtly brilliant. Is like, oh, we didn't even notice he undermined her here, he undermined her here, and then it's going to be Dom's break from the Judgment Day, or it's going to be the Judgment Day Civil War, because I think they're already building Priest versus Balor once Priest loses his title this weekend. So yeah.
Well, foreshadowing into another match. So you've got Liv going over here.
I've got Liv going over, and I think Dom indirectly, with air quotes, big flying, indirectly causes it.
I'm not sure they ever wanted to put the belt on Liv, first of all. I think she has this belt as a series of inadvertent injuries. I don't think they ever wanted to put it back on Becky. I don't think they ever wanted Rhea to miss time. She was the hottest thing in wrestling when she had to get sidelined due to injury.
Yeah.
I think one of two things is going to happen. One is Dominic is going to cost Rhea the match incidentally.
Yep.
He's going to try to be helpful and cost her the match. And I think it's going to create a shame spiral, and it's going to set up the rubber match at Bad Blood next month. I really do. I mean, I think that's crazy to think that kind of booking, but this is the premier story in all of wrestling. They're not abandoning it yet. They're going to continue. They're going to continue. If you've got 8-year-olds coming up to you at church on Sunday, Leah, ask you your thoughts on this. It's the top story in all of wrestling, right? I don't think they're done with this yet. This story ends if Liv loses this title. Somehow, Liv's going home with this belt.
Wow. I think so too. I think so. We're in agreement. I just disagree that this is the hottest story in wrestling because we haven't gotten to Punk and Drew yet, and that is the only match I care about. On if I still had to pay $60 to watch this thing, I would pay $60, watch that match, and not the rest, and I'd be fine. But we're not there yet. So anyway,
thank goodness we don't live in the pay-per-view world.
Right.
We can pay $9.99 a month to watch it all. Yeah. Damian Priest versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship match. And there is no men's Money in the Bank to interfere with it.
That's right. So here's the interesting thing. I've been saying, and somebody said in the chat that way, that Bayley is the most forgettable champion they've had. Oh, don't forget Damian Priest, though, because he's also forgettable. Here's the thing, though. Gunther so elevates everybody that he goes against that the last 3 weeks of TV, I've been going, oh, I'm really starting to get interested in Damian Priest now. But I recognize it's not because of what Damian Priest is doing. It's because Gunther is the foil. So for me, I could see them having Priest defeat Gunther, but I've got to say Gunther's got to win it. If he doesn't, that would make me, to use your words, big sad. That would make me big sad because he needs to be the, and I know we're, stepping on some unhallowed ground now to saying these words, but he needs to be the Brock Lesnar of this generation. He needs to be the, The Rock can say he's the final boss, but Gunther needs to be the actual last boss that you face before you get your head kicked in and your chest chopped so hard that your heart is beating out of your chest and literally spurting on the ground. That's Gunther. And that's why I care about Damian Priest more.
That's interesting that you would use, even that reference of who Gunther should become. I have thought for a few years now that Damian Priest should continue to devolve as a heel and to pick up Undertaker status.
Oh, yeah. I could see that.
He could be the dead man. They could do stuff with him even in his beautiful Latino culture of Dia de la Muerte. Like they could have him be the new dead man and a terrifying heel. and
Yeah.
yet somehow he's this likable, huggable guy that's like cracking jokes and smiling in the clubhouse with Rhea Ripley. What?
Right.
All that to say, I think
Mm.
they're billing Gunther as the new Undertaker, that he is going to be the invincible, unbeatable streak holder, the one who wins at key
Hmm.
pay-per-views and key times. Um, he's going over like nobody else. And I think it's going to be a clean pin. I
Hmm.
think it's going to be a clean pin that causes Damian Priest to back away from this weird persona that
Hmm.
he's been adapting. It's going to cause him to be angry. It's going to cause him to seek revenge. It's going to cause him
Hmm.
now. One way that could really happen is we've heard it over and over and over. Damian Priest say, "I don't need you. I'm going to do this on my own." And
Yes.
yet they do not listen and
Right.
they interfere time and time again. And I think this is no
Yep.
different. I think Balor tries
Balor
to be
causes it.
helpful and causes him the loss. He eats the loss.
Yep.
And I just don't see them continuing this feud. And I
Right.
think Priest has got to find something more interesting to do. He was a great Senor Money in the Bank.
He
He has been
was.
a horrible El Campeón.
Yep.
He could have been great.
I
Lee,
agree.
that pushes us to the
I think
next
Balor
match.
causes. You hit something though. I think Balor causes and I don't think it's a he tried to help. I think Balor flat turns on Damian Priest this match.
Oh,
I think this is the start of Judgment Day Civil War.
that'd be terrific. I would love to see a Finn Balor super kick to the
Mm.
throat of Damian Priest.
And
That
then
would be phenomenal. Yeah, that would be. Oh man, that would be
mm,
fantastic. And
yeah.
and somebody's got to crash into that giant prime bottle. It hadn't happened yet. No one has used the oversized prime as a weapon yet. It has
Right.
got to happen. We've got to see it. And Priest would be a great one for that to happen too.
Right.
Now, Lee, we come to the final two matches in this show. It was really interesting hearing Bully Ray, aka Bubba Ray, and Mark Henry and those guys debate on what the true main event of this show is going to be.
It's
But
pumpkin.
listed here on the card, we have CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre with special guest referee Seth freaking Rollins.
Yep. Well, I literally watch your face every time we mention CM Punk and Drew, and I know inside you're going, I'm trying not to yuck his yum. I'm
Yeah,
trying not to say this is the worst thing ever. I'm trying not to
I want
bash
to
it.
care. For the
But
record, I want to care.
there you go.
I do not care. I really want to.
I would say I agree with Wrestle Talk when they said, aside from the bloodline up to, when Cody won, aside from that storyline, CM Punk versus Drew is the best story they've told in the last 20 to 30 years.
Wow.
Period. That's the level I'm on. And again, I don't want you, I don't care if you say, I disagree and I hate it. That's okay. Like, you don't have to worry about yucking my yum there. I care
Respectable
more about
force.
this than I do about the rest of the
Right.
industry, period.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
that's a respectable take. That's a far a respectable source that I enjoy.
yeah.
And I think it's doing for wrestling fans like yourself something really special. It hasn't done it for me yet. I hope it does. I hope it turns a corner this week. But I don't care about Seth Rollins entering the
I
race
don't
and
either.
making this some sort of triangulated feud.
Yeah.
I want to see Punk established as a credible threat, not just a cheap shot artist.
Right.
I want to see Drew get his comeuppance.
Yep.
I couldn't care less about Seth Rollins. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it feels like this is going to continue, but I don't
Hmm.
see. I don't have a prediction here other than Rollins costing someone a match, someone being upset about it, and
Right.
that someone challenging him at the next pay-per-view. But I don't think the
Yeah.
person that wins is finished with the feud either. So I don't
Right.
see a clear path of departure in
There's
this
not.
storytelling.
This is the first or second inning, third inning, whatever you want to use for Paul Heyman's analogy. But here's the two things I think on it that are true. One is I think Triple H holds to long term booking like to the point of defiance because his original plan was Seth versus CM Punk as one of the main events for WrestleMania last year. I think he will hold that path defiantly against injuries and against naysayers. I think one of the main events for WrestleMania will be CM Punk and Seth this next year. I think the way they get there is to have this intersection of Drew, Seth, and eventually Drew drops out of the story, and then in a few months it's just Seth versus CM Punk blood feud. And the second thing with it is why name a pay-per-view bad or premium live event bad blood? Who has bad blood? CM Punk and Drew. They're the main event of that pay-per-view, one way or
Maybe
another.
so. Maybe
So
so. And maybe, Lee, I'm just curious here. Maybe what you just said is right. And Gunther, as world heavyweight champion, is poised for Drew McIntyre to then go on a run
that'd
after
be fun.
him. I mean, do you really take Drew out of the world title scene? He's more of a draw than Seth Rollins is, I think. I
Yeah.
don't care about Seth Rollins at all. To me, he's the new AJ Styles. He's paid to
Hey,
put the other guy over. He's
that's
paid
true.
to make you look good in the ring.
That's true.
So CM Punk versus Seth Rollins WrestleMania means Seth Rollins works the match really hard to put Punk over,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
I could see
I
that.
don't know. I don't know that Rollins had a chance to be a premier superstar when he did the heist, the
Oh yeah, it
greatest
was great.
heist ever. That's my top WrestleMania moment of
Yeah.
all time. And yet, what
Hmm.
did he do with it? He just blew it. He just got weird and uninteresting. But he puts on a great match and makes his opponent look terrific.
Very good.
And I'm
Yeah.
wondering, even in this match, if that's what his job is going to be to
Right.
make Punk somehow get a breather, right?
Hmm.
To be the force that makes them both look good and gives, Pepsi Phil more time to recoup, to heal. And maybe he's going to take a spot or two. Maybe he's going to get up. Maybe he's going to, put somebody, a curb stomp on somebody. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know who wins this thing. I don't know that there's even going to be a winner. I think it might just be a draw. It might just be a implosion where they feud backstage and then they say,
Right.
"Well, let's go to the next match."
It could be. I think Drew needs to win. I think for the storyline, Drew needs to. He has been screwed left, right, and center. I think Seth turns. I think Seth says, "Oh, I'm impartial. I hate both of you," but he hates CM Punk more. And I think this is that seed that gets us to WrestleMania. Is Seth is impartial. He hates both of them, but he still leans more towards Drew. Drew gets the win, and then if he moves on to Gunther, that's going to matter even more because Gunther has beat Drew left, right, and center. And if they're going to do that as a big match, and Gunther can't lose, he's not going to lose the title his first pay-per-view with the belt or PLE, whatever they're calling him now. So Drew makes sense to win on every level for this to move forward other stories. And I think that they're not done with CM Punk Drew after this. I think Phil then comes back and gets his win back. But I think this match goes to Drew because of Seth.
Mm, mm, mm,
I think
mm,
we've
mm.
triggered Thunder Q. I'm so sorry. I'm so
No, it's
sorry.
good. That's why pro wrestling's so much fun to talk about, is because we don't have to agree about it. We can do
Right.
some dream booking, how I would have wrote it, how I'd like to see it happen.
Right.
Final main event of the this is crazy though. After
Yeah.
that, then they're going to somehow have a main event match
Mm.
with Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa. The only thing that could top that cacophony of destruction would be one Mr. Roman Reigns walking in the building. That's the only way. I don't I don't see why they would put this match last if the head of the table doesn't walk in and interfere and Superman punch Solo right in his jaw.
So you've got The Rock coming back then? You said the head of the
Well,
table.
I think this starts the escalation of Rock Roman at WrestleMania.
Right?
I think this starts the escalation of new versus old bloodline at Survivor Series. I think Sunday morning, we're gonna be talking about what happened in this match more than we're talking about what happened in Punk and Drew, more than we're talking about what happened in Liv and Rhea.
Very
I
possible.
think.
If Roman comes back, I think you're 100% right. If Roman and Rock comes back, you're 10,000% right. I think if this is going last, the only way to justify that, well, it is the real world championship belt. So that should technically always go on last, whatever. But other than that, the only way in the storyline to justify it is Roman comes back. So I think this may be fantasy booking, but I would love to see Solo, my favorite title in all of wrestling, the Samoan Werewolf, Jacob Fatu, and the Tonga brothers,
Wild.
the Gorillas of Destiny. I think they all bloodline rules, Cody to oblivion where he is barely hanging on by a thread. And then we hear the words, "Ladies and gentlemen," and Paul Heyman comes out to the ring. It looks like he's going to make up with Solo, and he's finally going to bow, and he gets on the mic and says, "I finally am going to acknowledge my tribal chief." And then,
Yes.
bam, Superman punch out of nowhere. Roman Reigns clears the ring. Cody wins. And all of a sudden you have this weird tense stare down to end the PLE where Roman and Cody are just staring at each other. And it's like did he save him or is he about to destroy him? And they just go back and forth. And then they start to play out the story of Bloodline Civil War where Roman recruits. You already said it. He recruits Sammy. He recruits Jay. He recruits Jimmy. Jimmy comes back. And then Cody kind of shrinks away from that equation, but he's clearly Team Roman now. And you have the Bloodline versus the Bloodline. And then you finally get Rikishi and the tribal elders involved because you've said that for so long, and I've agreed with your booking, and it's never happened.
Poor Sika, is passed away before we could ever see that beautiful story. Lee, let me say this. I've got one alternative idea that I think could happen. I think we may not see Roman at SummerSlam.
It's very possible.
I think we might see The Rock.
Ooh.
I think we might see The Rock. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if he pulls up mid-match and comes out in his Ford Bronco. I don't know if he's there at ringside with them. I kind of anticipate The Rock's return at SummerSlam, and they teased it. The match initially was going to be Rock Cody SummerSlam.
Right.
Rock put something in Cody's hand months ago that was supposed to be revealed at SummerSlam.
Maybe this is where it does happen.
Yeah. Maybe the Bloodline just absolutely buries Cody because of the final loss.
And then Solo becomes champion? Ooh. That would be one of those, remember when they almost put the world title on Sheik Tugboat? That would be a Sheik Tugboat moment in history.
Right.
But if The Rock is actually the champion behind the scenes, I don't know. I definitely 100% agree that the ultimate outline is Bloodline Civil War, Cody versus Rock. I think those are the two stories going into maybe Survivor Series. Maybe they do Bloodline versus Bloodline War Games. Maybe Bad Blood. We get a hint at what maybe they tease all month. What did he put in his hand? What did he put in his pocket? And then Bad Blood is where The Rock finally reveals that he gave Cody a wad of cash, and really what happened was The Rock was actually pulling the strings behind the scene, and he paid off Cody so or maybe Rock was giving him, I don't know, who knows where they go. It's obviously probably Dusty's watch is probably what they're going to go with on there, but I don't know. Could be. Now, the only reality where I find this absolutely of no interest at all, no Roman, no Rock, which says something because I need somebody else in this match for it to matter to me. I'm sorry.
Well,
I failed you.
let me, for the record, let me say I'm not predicting a Solo title reign.
Oh,
I'm not predicting
Oh, I thought you
that
were.
Solo goes over here. But what I am saying is that I very likely could see The Rock being the one that comes out instead of Roman. And I very
Okay.
likely could see this being the catalytic moment that pushes, us over the edge to really hating the bloodline. Um, I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know who's going to go over, but I just don't see Cody dropping this belt yet. I just
Right.
don't see it happening. I
Yeah.
just don't, but in the Attitude Era, people were winning and losing titles all over the place in an
Right.
unpredictable fashion. And then he'd win it back like, on a Tuesday night,
In
untelevised
Texas.
or something.
Right.
Yeah, crazy like that. So,
Yeah.
well, I think that's about all we've got in us, Lee. I know we've got to
Yeah, I
move
gotta
on to
go.
stuff today, but shoot, it's fun to just dream about SummerSlam a little bit, isn't it?
And it'll be fun to watch it. I'm sure you and I'll be texting back and forth a little bit, and you guys keep us in mind. And what did we get right? What didn't we get right? Tell us in our comments section since this will drop, and then only have about a day before, or a day or two before SummerSlam happens. But hey, I haven't said it in a while. I used to always end with the words, "It's an honor to smash gems alongside you," and I kind of got away from that for a while. But I just want to remind myself the reason I say that is because we appreciate this community so, so very, very much.
Right.
And so if you mistook Rusty's chat in the global chat as him attacking you, go back and watch the real reason behind the scenes. Let Rusty know how much you care about him in the comments section, because we truly appreciate you guys, and it is an honor to smash gems alongside you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.